Welcome to the Wealth Without Wall Street podcast, your guide to understanding how to get out of the Wall Street rat race and start your own mailbox money lifestyle. Now, don't let these handsome Southern draws fool you. These financial minds are teaching our country to enhance savings, increase cash flow, and create passive income, all without the help of Wall Street. Are you ready to break through? Now here are your hosts, Russ Morgan and Joey Murray.
Welcome. This is the Wealth Without Wall Street podcast. Your host, Joey, the Italian Stallion Murray, joined as always by Russ, the Idea Guy Morgan. So the question of the week in our community is, if your business was so successful that it no longer needed you to run it on a day-to-day basis, what would you do with all the free time that brought? And Russ, you haven't piped in this week, so I'm asking you on the show.
The reason I haven't piped in, because be honest, I don't know. I mean, I live and breathe what we do, Stallion. I don't know what I would do. Like I wake up excited to get here. Now I'm excited to leave, but I'm always, I travel a bunch, you know?
Oh yeah. Trust me, I know. I'm here shouldering all the weight.
I just love it. I mean, so I've definitely been pondering that, and I'm just trying to think, like, what would I do? I'd have to pour it into some other business. Like, this whole concept of retirement doesn't exist for me. I just don't know. Like, I'm just wired to go. So I'm not probably the perfect one to answer that, because I just love to go.
All right. Well, I'll answer the question that you didn't ask me in return. I think the bigger thing to me is not necessarily that you're not present at a business per se, that you're no longer like involved. That's not what I'm talking about at all. I mean, trust me, I need you around. Okay. Let's just make sure that's clear. But to me, it's like, okay, how could we enhance what we're already doing with our lives? To me, it would be more like geographic freedom, like not having to be in one particular location, being able to go with my family on extended times away. Like one of our guests talked about a 6-week vacation in Europe or a 6-week travel around Japan. Those are the kind of things that get me excited.
But what's keeping you from doing that right now?
Well, we're not quite where I could feel like we could do that and still be able to maintain some of the things that we do on a day-to-day basis.
I challenge you on that. I think we can. I mean, our meetings are online. This podcast, I love seeing your face like right now. But, you know, when I was at the lake, we were doing this podcast, me at the lake and you here. So you totally could have been in Europe. I mean, assuming you got good internet. I mean, they got internet in Europe, don't they?
I hope so.
I mean, I've been there in a while. I watch European Vacation, you know, check up on it.
But so the reason why we're talking about this today and this week really is because of our interview with Jamil Damji. Jamil has inspired us because he is at a point in his career where literally one of his biggest challenges was he doesn't know what to do with all the free time. He's got a business that's running so efficiently without him that he doesn't have to do it all every day.
And he's a successful entrepreneur, but it wasn't always that way, Joey.
That's right.
Like, he got out of his lane. I mean, literally got run over like a dump truck when he got out of his lane. So much so that he left real estate, which is his investment business, his main business. He got out of that, became a stand-up comic, traveling, doing that, which is like completely opposite, but got back into this and now has been so successful that, as you said, he's created an automatic business for himself.
And here's not just any automatic business. We're talking wholesaling 100 homes a month.
And what is wholesaling again?
Like, he's connecting buyers and sellers of rental real estate or flip real estate, whatever it might be. So he finds it at a discount. He sells it to an investor at a slight upcharge and makes the difference.
Yeah, he's just like any other business selling a product. His product, though, is just the contract on real estate, and he gets paid to do it, which is a pretty cool deal. It's very specialized. Most people don't know what that is. To be honest, I didn't really know what it was until we interviewed him. I just know that the average guy who's doing this and who's being pretty successful at it is doing like 5 or 6 homes a month, and they're doing like 100 something homes a month.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's an absurd amount of business. There's so many takeaways from this interview. We don't want to just totally let the cat out of the bag, but I will say this. He does focus on how the banks have such an impact and had such an impact on him that he had to go back to school on that. So, and learn from that mistake.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to go and I'm going to think through this question a little deeper. I want you to think about this question. What would you do, or what will you do? Let's be more positive focus on that. What will you do when your business can run without you with all your spare time? And let's listen to Jamil Damji. If you've been listening to our show for a while and you've heard the Stallion and I talk about how we use these life insurance policies to invest in our business, to buy real estate, and to do numerous other things, and you're like, look, I want to do that. That's what I want to have, but I don't have one of these policies. It's so stinking easy. Just go into the show notes, press the button to schedule a call with us. Somebody on our team can walk you through that process. Or go to wealthwithoutwallstreet.com, click the schedule a call now.
Welcome into the show. We have Jamil Damji on the line with us. Welcome, my friend.
Hi, how you doing?
Doing great.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on and sharing with us today. There's a lot to learn. Yeah, I want to take you back to a moment in time, though, that's maybe not so popular in your mind, but I know it's impacted your life greatly, and it's going to be an interesting story to see how this unfolded. But take me back to the moment in which I think we're 2008-ish, and your parents have just been evicted. They've lost their home, and it's a result of some investment gone bad that they would help co-sign a loan to you. Walk us through that moment in time. What's going through your mind? What's happened?
So, what's going through my mind at that time is everything. I'm completely depressed. I feel defeated. I feel so shameful, guilty. My parents, they weren't wealthy people. They were blue collar. I mean, as blue collar could get. My mom worked at she was a data entry operator, and then she worked at a slaughterhouse for many years. She'd wake up at 3 a.m. to go work. My father, he spent 30 years with a couple of his brothers running a truck stop. And so, they earned their money inch by inch. I was at a point where I had lost everything that, I had gained in the real estate market leading up to that. So there was millions of dollars of money that my sister and I had put out on the line and had earned. And then, the few hundreds of thousands of dollars that my parents had in equity in their home, the vehicle that my sister and I had bought for them, everything we had was gone. And, I was drinking a lot at the time. I was really at the lowest point in my life. It was the worst.
Well, I'm grateful that that's not the end of your story, but it was a part of it, right? So
Absolutely.
walk us through what it took to get to that point, like how the steps leading up to that.
So, for some of your viewers who won't know me, I got involved in real estate by accident. I did my first deal trying to fill a need. So what I had found was there were some home builders in my city that were trying to find these older houses that were in infill areas, so inner city style neighborhoods, and they would knock these houses down and they would put up these $1 million duplexes, and they were selling like hotcakes. So these builders were looking for more and more of these lots that were difficult to find. I overheard a conversation where my business partner at the time, whose father was a home builder, was describing their issues, and so I stepped outside of the box I was in, and I went looking. I took some action. So first things first, intuitively I knew people who had or people who were trying to rent those specific types of properties would be more likely to sell that property, a week into a month, right? So I had actually tried to move into this one specific house, and it didn't work out. I actually moved into one around the corner from it. And so I called that lady because her for rent sign was still out on her lawn, and had a conversation, and I ended up contracting that property, and I flipped it for $50,000. It was, beginner's luck, if you want to call it. It wasn't just, taking that first step. It wasn't serendipity. I don't know. I think it could be all, right?
Hold on one thought there. You just threw out a bunch. So I'm going to break down what I think I heard, and I want you to kind of tell me what I'm missing here. So number one, you talked about renting, but then how those people are looking to sell. I think I know what you mean. Explain what you're talking about.
So property managers, a lot of self-managed property managers, right? So people who own, one or two properties or maybe one or two fourplexes. They're not, heavy in terms of portfolio landlords, but they're individual property landlords. So managing rentals is difficult, right? Marketing for renters is hard. Screening for renters is hard. Handling all of the maintenance issues, the collection of rents, evictions, all of those things are really difficult. And it's taxing on somebody who, decides they want to get involved in, investment real estate, wants to become a landlord, and then they just realize, wow, this is a lot more work than I was, than I was cut out for. And so what I had intuited was that if somebody is trying to rent a property and they've spent the last 2 weeks or 3 weeks marketing that house, and they're unable to be successful by that time. So, and how I would know is that if, the first week after the first of the month, if that property is still for rent, that means they weren't successful renting that property.
Gotcha.
Which means that there could be a pain point there.
Right.
Is what we do as real estate investors is we try to identify pain points, because those pain points are motivating factors for a seller to make a decision. So for me, I realized at that point that there could be some pain for an individual who has been unsuccessful at renting a property near the 4th or 5th of the month, and they'd be open to a conversation about potentially selling. Now It's me as an orator, as somebody who's negotiating, as somebody who's trying to, connect with someone, build rapport. Now I know I have to perform and do what I need to do to convince this person to sell their house, but there is a higher likelihood that this is a conversation they'd be open to.
Gotcha. Then the second thing you mentioned was you flipped it for $50,000. I know what that means, but does that mean you sold it for $50,000?
No, sir. So what I had done was wholesale real estate is an interesting business model, and people like to use complicated terms like arbitrage and things of that nature. I'm going to keep that out of here. I'm going to keep it as simple as possible. I contract a house for, let's say, $100,000. All right. Now I know that I have a buyer for that same house that would take it from me as a cash buyer for $110,000. Now, investors who are thinking, okay, well, that's good. So where do you get the $100,000 to buy the house? You can sell it for $110,000 to make the profit. So this is where the beauty of what wholesale real estate is all about. The buyer who I have contracted to agree to purchase this property for $110,000 will actually come to the closing table with that $110,000, fund my purchase, and I get the money in the middle. So essentially what wholesaling is we're selling contracts. We're selling our position in a contract for a fee. And it's really as simple as that. So what did I need to bring to the table to do that deal? I needed to have access to earnest money, which in some states can be as low as $100, right? And contracts, and just a little bit of information, a little bit of know-how as to how to identify what's a deal versus something that's not a deal.
And so in your case, you made $50,000 by being the middleman.
Yes, sir.
So you identified a real opportunity there by accident that you said. So, I mean, that obviously led you to saying, how can I push the gas on this? Because if every deal is worth $50,000, how many can I do? Exactly.
And then from there, that's exactly what I did. I continued. I went and got the newspaper. At that time, we didn't really have these websites weren't they weren't super popular. It's 2003, right? In fact, the company that I owned with my partner, whose father was a home builder, we were in the business of trying to convince people to start a website for their business, right? We actually used to get the phone book and the yellow pages. We'd call every company in the yellow pages from different categories, and we'd say, why don't you have a website? I'm looking for you online and you don't exist. And 9 times out of 10, people would tell us to beat it, right? And so this is like how far back I am in time, because now we have the internet and everything at our fingertips and instantaneous. So I get a newspaper. I'm in the classified sections of the newspaper. That's where people would list their for rents, and I just go down, and every single day I'd call every single one of them, and I was connecting. I started connecting more and more and more. And then my eyes got bigger and bigger, and I started realizing that, you could make a lot more money if you did this exact same scenario with apartment buildings.
Now, just to clarify, Jamil, did they have cars back then?
Yes.
Okay. Just making sure, because.
I mean, so all right, so
that.
Yeah. So you saw the idea, you're playing the Monopoly board, and you said, okay, I'm going to turn in the greenhouses for the red hotels, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So tell us, how did that up the game when you started playing in the apartment world?
So the spreads just got crazy, right? So I could tie up an apartment building and we're talking numbers here that were just nutty to me, but I just got so comfortable. I got so confident in what I was doing and in my ability to evaluate that when I contracted, I knew I had a deal. I knew I was going to be able to sell the deal, right? So just kind of extrapolating from where I was. So, on a house, a single family house, you'd be contracting that for $100,000. You sell for $110,000, you make $10,000. Great. In that first deal, I bought for $350,000, I sold for $400,000, I made $50,000. It was awesome. In apartment buildings, you buy for $1.2 million and you sell for $1.4 million. And so you see the amount of money that you can make on essentially flipping a contract goes from $10,000 or $20,000 or $30,000 to $100,000 or $200,000. And so I just essentially upped the ante, right? I was doing larger transactions. I was flipping larger transactions. I was moving in different circles now. So I wasn't dealing with just individual home builders, little guys that were building, these nice little modern duplexes. I was now dealing with developers, people who were in the business of buying buildings and converting entire buildings.
So what year was it that you transitioned into the apartment space?
So I probably started moving from single family into apartment buildings around 2005. Yeah, okay. 2005 sounds right to me. Because what ended up happening was I was starting to see these developers, they were just crushing it, right? They'd make $1 million or more on a building that they could be in and out of in like 6.5 months. And I'm starting to see how they can turn these things. And so I do my first deal. I connect with a real estate agent who has the inside track on an apartment that, the seller, the husband, he dies. The wife has no interest whatsoever in managing this building, keeping this building, or having it. She wants a quick transaction. She's just ready to, dump and go. The records were terrible. There was no P&Ls. There was just, people weren't paying rent. People were paying rent. It was a complete shambles. The exact situation that makes sense for me, right? So I go in, and in fact, on my first apartment little deal, I had to get some help from these developers, right? So I'd ask, so what are you guys paying for a building per door? And I got, as long as I knew that there was at least 50% parking, if there was at least 50% of the building were 2 bedrooms, and the other half could be ones, but at least if half of the building were 2 bedrooms and there was at least 50% parking, it was a viable building to sell, and they would pay somewhere in the realm of $150 a door. So I knew I had to be able to back in at anything below $150 a door, essentially.
Okay. And so then walk us through what happened on that deal.
My first few wholesales for apartment buildings went awesome. I crushed it. I made, a couple $100,000 pops at a time. I was loving life. My sister and I decided to get a little bit more gutsy with what we were going to do, and we make a decision that we're not going to wholesale this next one. We're going to switch our business model, and we're going to get into the developer side of it, and we're going to put our big boy and girl pants on and flip a building. And our first one, we crush it. We do an amazing job. We really time the construction. We do well. We make a decent amount of money on the total deal after financing. It's all said and done. Soft hard costs are all taken care of. Her and I do really well. And so we decide to continue going, and instead of just doing, 1 or 2, we were actually leveraged over 4. Because we just thought, hey, this market's not going to last. We've made all this money. We've got all this cash. Cash doesn't do well just sitting in our bank accounts because, we start buying things. And so we decided to double down. And in order to actually get all those construction loans, I needed more. I needed another borrower. I needed more security, and that's how I wrote my mom and dad into that conversation.
So you mentioned your sister here. So this obviously was a family affair. You and your sister were kind of in this business from the get-go as partners. Yes,
we still are.
All right, perfect. And so then now you're kind of, like you said, you're starting to run thin on access to cash. So you go to mom and dad, you say, hey, look how we're doing. It's amazing. We've progressed right along. Now we're into this new role. It's going very well, but we need some help. And so is this where you go to them and say, I need you to help co-sign a loan for me?
Yeah. And if the way you describe it sounds so much better than how we did it.
Oh, well.
We look, I got 2, and I'm not trying to by any means degrade their intelligence, but I have 2 immigrant parents, who are, who really didn't understand. I think they just really didn't understand. They just trusted us. They trusted their son. They trusted their daughter. They felt we would never put them in a situation that could be harmful on purpose, and which we wouldn't. And so it was literally like, hey guys, look, so you're gonna help. We don't need any of your money. We just need your name. Obviously, they're gonna use your credit, but don't worry about credit because it's fine. We're not gonna screw up. Everything's gonna be okay. And I think that's part of how my sister and I sold it to them. Look, if I had said to my mom and dad at that time, look, this is super risky and there's a chance that we screw up and lose all the money, will you still do it? They would have done it. Because that's just the family I have. But I think that neither my mom or dad were ever like real estate investors. They were just They were just like innocent bystanders that we roped into our situation.
They're just following the 2 of you. They believe in you too, and that's an amazing group of parents that that love you and want to see you succeed. And obviously, you were being successful. You've done a bunch of deals, so you everything's going great. You guys have done individual deals. You've moved into apartment complexes. You've moved into developments. I mean, this is like just the stair step. Everything's going well. You go to mom and dad. You say, hey, I need you guys to help me just co-sign this loan. It's going to give us more kind of wiggle room here. What happens next?
So, we get into it. We purchase these buildings. We're super excited. We start to hear grumblings in the news of, credit problems in the U.S. Now, I'm in Canada at the time, and I'm in Calgary, Alberta, of all places, where we have a lot of resources, right? The oil is what that entire province of Alberta is based off. And so, we're trading oil at $110, $130 a barrel at that time. We're thriving. We're thriving where we are. The markets are booming. The stock markets are still booming. The United States is having its issues, but we didn't feel it up there. We felt insulated. And so, we hear the grumblings, we hear the things, happening, but we're moving along, right? We're buying, we start demolition. And the way that the banks work in Canada are a little different than the United States. You don't have hard money lenders there. You do have secondary banks. But the banks and the government are the same dude, right? So they will always get their money. It's just one of those things. The laws are constructed in such a way that they can, financial institutions can maneuver whichever way they want. They very, very much limit the consumer's abilities to renegotiate or, to even help themselves out of a bad spot. So we're with this one lender. The way that they were approving our construction financing was, they said, look, we want to be the lender for all of the individual units that you pre-sell to your clients. So we'll set up a sales center in one of your buildings. You drive the traffic to us. We'll qualify them. Once we can qualify 50% of your building as pre-sold, we'll give you the construction loans, and we'll give them to you floor by floor, so you can finish. And we were only converting 3-story walk-ups at the time, so we would complete floor 1. People would take occupancy, and that money would then finance floor 2 and floor 3. The last half of floor 3 would be our profit, essentially. So we're in that. We're going. We're hustling. We've got our pre-sales done. We have buildings under construction. Credit starts getting tight in the United States, and all of a sudden we get a call from the lender who says, hey, all those pre-sales that we qualified, we want to re-qualify them now because things are a little different. I don't know if you've been watching the news, but credit in the United States is kind of drying up, and we just want to make sure we're in a good position with borrowers. So, nothing to be worried about, but we just want to re-qualify everybody. So if you want to let them know that that's going to happen, that would be a good idea. So we do that. We let everyone know they're going to be re-qualified. They didn't re-qualify a single borrower. Every borrower they had pre-qualified, they now denied. And because of that denial, they called our construction loan in. And so, the dominoes just started falling. So that same bank then took the property back, held it for about 2.5 months, and sold it for $1.4 million in profit from what they took it back from us. And so I think here in the United States, they call that fraud. In Canada, they call it bad luck.
Well, I think a couple things that I'm resonating with right off the bat is that you technically never owned that property. It was always the banks, which we talk a lot about on here, is that the banks we need to get the banks out of the control factor of our lives, and that the markets, you said the markets and the government were basically one dude, I think is what you mentioned. And I think I would agree that that's the way it is here in America. We just maybe haven't woken up to that as clearly as you stated it. So,
maybe that's the title of a book one day. The government and the markets are one dude.
Write that one down.
Yeah, excellent. All right, so all this stuff comes crashing down. We're back at that moment where you and your sister have lost all the money that you've made, which has been really successful. I'm sure there's a few toys, but listening to your story in the past, a lot of that stuff is being repoed too, from what I understand.
Yep. I have this clear picture of me, staring out my window, and they're towing away my cars, and it's just the worst. There's nothing worse than losing, everything. And in the relationships, right? I started, the girl I dated disappeared all of a sudden now. And, I'm alone, and it was terrible. It was, they were just taking everything away. And then my stuff started going away, and then my parents' stuff started going away. And that's, that was the lowest. that right there. I mean, we gave that home to my mom and dad for Mother's Day, you know?
Oh, wow. And that was the home that got taken back. Wow. Well, all right. So there's some significant lessons. Obviously, you were playing in a game much higher than a lot of the people maybe listening, and there's some lessons though along the way that you learned in this process that I want to take away. I want to look at those, and then I do want to get back to where you are today, because there's some amazing things that you guys have been able to accomplish. Take us through one or two of those like big lessons that you look back on now that maybe you just didn't see then, that you would, if you were talking to the former you, right, the younger you, and you could go back and counsel younger Jamil, what were one or two of those things that you would have whispered in your ear and said, hey, watch out for this?
Well, I think, because I feel like, and I hate using the word universe, right? But I feel like it pushed me into being a wholesaler, right? I naturally, intuitively, instinctively did a wholesale transaction by myself without any instruction, without anyone drawing the lines for me or explaining how that worked. And I was so successful at it, right? We were really doing well. It was a core expertise that I had. So my first mistake was getting out of what I was good at, and then betting it all on a business model I knew nothing about. And it wasn't construction that I didn't know anything about. It was the world of finance, right? Mm-hmm. I didn't understand the world of finance. I did not understand leverage. And so being in that situation at that time, completely uneducated on finance and leverage, I just thought I was, with the construction knowledge, design knowledge, and knowing how to buy right, I thought I had all the pieces in place to be successful at that business model. In fact, I had all the pieces in place to be a successful sucker in that business model because I didn't understand leverage and I didn't understand finance. So that was a key takeaway for me moving forward into my days here now, with the new company and what we've been able to accomplish in the last few years. I had to really understand and reevaluate my complete ignorance into those key businesses, right? Leverage and finance.
Well,
second, sorry.
No, I mean, it's exactly. So we talk about a concept called the hierarchy of wealth, Jamil. And it is this 4-tiered approach that we need to meet the base level before we have motivation or anticipation to move to the next level. And it's the bottom is cash and cash flow. The second is control, things that we can influence and control, which obviously our investment in our understanding of us and what we can do, and just exactly what you were talking about. Like you were investing in yourself, and you and your sister, and you guys kind of had this core knowledge, this capability that maybe you had built from other occupations or whatever it was. It was a gift that you were given. You were good at doing it. And then you started applying it inside of an area. So for us, tier 3 is within a collateralized position so that you have assets that's backing up this core knowledge. So we always tell our clients, you focus in those bottom 3 areas, and the top of that pyramid, which most of our clients never get into, but we always mention it, is speculation. And for you, speculation was the world of finance. It was that thing that you didn't have influence over, you didn't have control over. And at the end of the day, it's the one thing that came back and bit you. And for us, we refer to that as Wall Street in a lot of grounds. It's the Bitcoin. It's that shiny object syndrome that we love to go chase. But it's the one thing that when all things go bad, that's going to be the one that brings the whole ship down.
100%. And, for all of your listeners, I mean, guys, that's the key right there. Understand, know your key competencies, understand the things that you love, the things that you can, that you're feeling confident that you can invest in yourself on. And then that red herring, that shiny object, just look away. Like, I don't know how to say that in a better way, but don't be an Icarus, right? We don't all need to fly to the sun. you got to keep marching, and doing what you know how to do best.
Okay. So Jamil, I have a question. You have totally just fallen off a cliff with this whole experience, right? But yet we're interviewing you as a real estate expert in the way of wholesaling today, right? Yeah. So how in the world, I mean, if I'm standing in that position, having to look my parents in the face and say, hey, this is my fault, we've lost your house, how do you continue in real estate? Like, I mean, I could never pull myself from that position. How did you do it?
So I didn't right away. I had to take a break. So I packed up my family and I moved to Hollywood. And so, my life was so tragic at the time. I thought, what better thing to do than make fun of myself on stages across the United States or Hollywood at the time, and tell everybody, how shitty of a son and investor I am and person and all the other things. And so I went into comedy. I had to do a complete 180. I needed a breath. And so I did that. And I did that actually, at a pretty decent level for a few years, never really taking my finger off of the real estate itch, because I always had it, but I was in LA. I'm doing stand-up comedy. I'm doing sketch comedy. I'm having a blast. And as I'm making money out there, I'm taking those funds, turning around and buying apartments in Phoenix, Arizona that are selling for like $25,000, $30,000 that you can rent out for $800 a pop. At the time, my thought process wasn't, I'm going to take advantage of the depressed real estate market for wealth gain. I thought, I'm just going to keep making money and buying these apartments, because living in Los Angeles is so dang expensive that if I could just supplement my rent from, getting rent from people in Phoenix, I can basically buy like 4 of these condos for, $100,000, which I can get $3,200 a month out of. Then I could take that money into LA and live in a fairly decent life for $100,000. I mean, that's just the way that the math in my head was working, right? So that's what I was doing. And so I'm, fast forward now, it's like 2012. I'm in LA. I'm doing this. But I'm now writing offers on properties in Phoenix, right? Because I'm trying to get this cash flow. I'm trying to buy these really, really cheap assets that can help supplement my life. And, I hired a terrible property manager who, I realized I needed to get rid of, because he was basically telling me my units weren't renting, but he was renting them out for cash. So that happened. So I feel this pull that I'm not taking care of my investments in the city. And then secondly, I have a couple of properties under contract that I don't want to keep. I actually feel like, maybe I should sell these ones because they're single family properties, single family rentals. At the time I'm living in LA, so I just want to be in apartments because they're easy, or condos, because they're easy, they're managed, and I can deal with that. So I decided I want to sell these 2 single family homes, and I read an ad on Craigslist. And, the way my head just kind of operates naturally, I knew, I had these things under contract for like, I can't even remember now, but I'm going to just say $100,000. I think it was like 80 or something, but like, just say I had them each under contract for $100,000. I put these ads on Craigslist to sell them at 110. And an individual by the name of Tim Wynn, who still operates here in Phoenix as a wholesaler, gave me a call, went to go, drove by the houses, told me he would take them both. After closing costs, it's like an $18,000 payday. And I'm like, man, that was so easy. And Tim, being the guy he is, was so gracious. He said, why don't you pop out here for a week? Come hang out with me. You can, be my guest. I'll drive you around. We'll show you all the things that I've got going on over here. You seem to have an understanding and a knack for this. Come out and let me show you what's happening in Phoenix. And so I took him up on that offer, and I came out for the week. Changed my life, changed my eyes. I was watching this guy literally make $50,000 trading paper in a day, right? And so I packed up a U-Haul. It was my birthday. I'll never forget the date because it was 12/12/12. I packed up and I drove to Phoenix.
So now you're back in the wholesaling space. You're like, I've rebounded. I'm back in. It's all right, sis, mom and dad. Let's pack up and move to Phoenix.
So pretty much, you know what, we're like a caravan, right? So we're like a caravan of gypsies. We go everywhere together. So yeah, I mean, essentially, I was in the first U-Haul and they were a month and a half behind me, but I think they moved in like middle of January. They moved down middle of January kind of thing. So yeah, I'm in Phoenix. It's just my sister and I we're small time real estate wholesalers, just, you know, putting houses under contract, knowing our numbers, selling those contracts, making clips of $5,000 and $10,000 at a time. And we're doing really well. I think, you know, first few months in, our income started to come in at around, you know, the 30 to 50K a month range. That to me was exciting. But, you know, we really, you know, her and I are older school. We didn't have a lot of knowledge of systems. We didn't have a lot of knowledge of automations, you know, real technological ways to do wholesaling at a high level. And so fast forward a few years, I'm still just the, you know, onesie twosie kind of guy. I'm doing a few deals a month. I start connecting with some larger wholesalers in town. You know, if you're consistent at it and you keep doing it, people get to know who you are. Actually, I was reminded of this by Brent Daniels because I forgot I did this thing. So what I was doing at the time was I would reach out to real estate agents and I would, you know, tell them, look, I've got cash. I want to purchase. I'm really interested in these types of properties, but I need you to do me a favor. The only way I can do a business with you is if you don't tell anybody who I am. and they
doesn't
were like,
sound shady at all. That does not.
Like, I don't want to know. I don't want anybody to know who I am. I'm a private guy. I want to stay private. I don't want you talking about me. I don't want you posting about me. I just want you to be super, super quiet. And I did that like 1,000 times. Right? And so all of a sudden I'm just getting this flow of deals coming at me from everywhere. It's crazy town. And then I meet my two business partners that we built Keegley with, Josiah and Hunter, who are just two wonder kids. You know, Hunter is 22 years old. Josiah is 25. They understand systems. They understand automations. They understand how to really build, you know, how to take everything that we were doing in investments and real estate and make a tech company out of it, essentially. And so, you know, today Keegley's in operation. We got 46 staff. We're growing. We're in multiple markets. We wholesale, you know, 70 to 100 houses a month.
Wow. So that's a pretty dramatic transformation from the guy who is with his tail between his legs in 2008 to today. You're at the top of your game.
Yes.
That's pretty amazing.
Feels good, man.
So I mean, that's an amazing story, and I would love to have you in the community to share kind of those systems and processes and how people can even learn more about wholesaling. And we definitely want to be able to, you know, have them connect with you. Keegley, which is Keygle, right?
Correct.
That's the name of your company.
Yes, sir.
You've gone from doing a couple of deals a month to now doing 70 deals a month. That's kind of astronomical.
Yeah.
What's the biggest challenge that you face right now? Is it deal flow, or I mean, it sounded like a second ago, deal flow is not an issue. What are the challenges that you're facing now in this current level?
So it's the company's running in the most fluid way possible, right? So deal flow is great. We're expanding to multiple new markets. Those expansions are highly successful and profitable. I think once you build a company that is doing what it's doing without you, for me personally, the challenge is, what do I do with myself, right? I'm here. I'm in the office. I get to talk to people. I get to. I'm involved in some training. But I walked in today. Right. We just hired a new person today, and so I'm walking into the office, and she's watching a video of me. Right. My trainings are automated. I even forgot from like 3.5 years ago when Josiah and Hunter were filming me that we had done that. Right. And so they systematized everything. I mean, they figured out exactly how to get rid of me. Right. So
don't take it personally, though. Don't take it personally.
I'm not taking it personally at all. I'm 40 years old. Right. I got less energy than they do, but they changed my life. Right. This all changed my life. And so my biggest challenge today is just empowerment, right? Like I remember being, at that point, I remember sitting on my keister, feeling terribly sorry for myself, doing the things that we do as human beings to numb it, right? I'm in that space. I'm in that energy. I feel terrible about me. I feel terrible about life. I feel terrible about everything. And it's a hopeless and desperate place to be. But if there's anybody there, anyone listening, anyone who's a viewer of yours or a viewer of yours who knows somebody that they can turn on to this podcast or you guys, and if this story can help anybody, just know that it's absolutely normal to be sitting flat on your butt. It's absolutely normal to feel shame, to feel terrible, to lose. That is a part of the game. Right? That is a part of a big life, right? I don't know how good this feels today without a memory of how bad that felt then. So for everybody who is like just there, but needs that little bit of something to help them take a step, I mean, I hope that's inspiring. I hope it does something. For me, my challenge is how do I share with more people just how not easy but rewarding believing in yourself really can be. And I'm nothing special, man. Like I'm just a guy who could see a couple of dots. There's people out there who can chisel Einstein's face out of blocks of ice. There's people out there who can do the most amazing, fantastic things with themselves, with their minds, that are not taking any action on it. And it's those people I'd love to connect with more and more and more every day.
Well, Jamil, that has been inspiring, man. Your story is definitely one, like you said, of a big life and going through the ups and downs that requires. I appreciate you giving us the insider scoop on that. Not the Facebook social media view of all the ups and none of the downs. So, man, I'm grateful that you would do that. I'm grateful that you're going to be a part of our community and that you're going to join us for the Q&A. So if you are listening and you are wanting to hear more, because we obviously didn't have enough time to go through all the questions that we wanted to ask, join us. Go into community.wealthwithoutwallstreet.com and join the community so you can ask Jamil these questions yourself. And again, I can't thank you enough for being here.
Thank you.
And any parting thoughts from you, Russ?
Yeah, just an amazing story. I look forward to learning more from you. I think your family kind of bond and togetherness is something that our country needs more of. It's something that Joey and I talk about a lot. We're big. I mean, we homeschool our kids. I mean, that's a passion of ours to build that kind of family legacy that is learning from one another and sharing with one another, and to see how you and your sister have done that. And I just think it's really cool. So definitely, if you guys get a chance, make sure you join the community, join the live Q&A that's going to happen on October 22nd with Jamil. And Jamil, thank you again, man. Just it's going to be awesome to kind of watch you hit that next level.
Thank you, guys. And anyone, if you want to follow me on Instagram, I'm at JDAMJI, at JDamji. Keegley is our company. At Keegley as well is on Instagram. And if you want to learn more about how we do what we do, www.astroflipping.com/Jamil. Thanks again, guys.
Have you been listening to our podcast and wondering, Am I the only person that knows about infinite banking? Or what about the 5 pillars of Wealth Without Wall Street? How can I learn more? Now is your chance. You can join the community that is learning this across the country.
Go to community.wealthwithoutwallstreet.com where you can access Q&As with all our podcast guests and live group coaching with some of the top experts from across the nation. And yes, I'm throwing in the Stallion and I in that. Just go to community.wealthwithoutwallstreet.com and sign up.
This has been the Wealth Without Wall Street podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to the show to break free of the Wall Street mindset and begin building wealth on your own terms in places you understand so that your wealth will never run dry. See you next episode.